The Lonely Alien, script 800 words. The night was quiet. The ruins of an ancient city lay under a broken sky, half covered in dust and stone. Cracked walls rose like skeletons, and the cold wind whispered through empty streets. Once, this place had been filled with life. Now, only shadows lived here, and among those shadows walked her. The alien woman moved slowly, her pale feet brushing against the cracked ground. Her skin was soft and blue, glowing faintly under the light of the shattered moon. Her long white hair, once braided with jewels of her royal house, now hung loose and tangled over her shoulders. She pulled her cloak tighter around herself, as if it could hide the truth she carried inside. She had once been a princess. Once, she had walked among golden halls and endless gardens. She had heard music and laughter every day. Her family was powerful, her people respected them, and she had been admired as their jewel. But when the truth was discovered, when they realized she was barren, everything had changed. To her kind, a princess without children was no princess at all. Her mother had turned her face away in shame. Her father had spoken only one sentence before he ordered the guards to take her away. A royal tree that cannot bear fruit must be cut down. And so she was abandoned, left to wander, left to wither. Now, she lived only with her memories, in ruins forgotten even by time. Every night, she sat among broken stones and asked herself the same question: why am I still alive? Her heart was heavy, carrying years of rejection. Her tears had long dried out. She believed she had none left to cry. Her soul felt empty, hollow like the ruins she walked through. But deep inside, a spark still lived, a spark that refused to die. Sometimes, she dreamed of voices, voices that told her she was more than her curse. She dreamed of warm hands, a gentle smile, and words that did not cut her apart. But dreams were only dreams. When she woke, she always found herself alone. Tonight was no different. She walked to the broken fountain at the center of the ruins. Once, water had danced here, shining like liquid silver. Now, only dust filled the basin. She sat on the edge and looked up at the stars through the shattered ceiling above. Her eyes were bright, filled with sorrow but also longing. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. She froze. It was not the whisper of wind, not the cry of a distant creature. This was something different. It was heavy, steady footsteps. Her breath caught. Who could be here? No one came to this place. No one dared. She rose slowly, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the shadows. And then she heard it. A voice. A deep, human voice, rough from travel but warm like fire. Is someone there? Her heart raced. She had not heard another living voice in months, maybe years. Her people never returned to the ruins. Yet this voice was not alien. It was strange, unfamiliar, and yet there was something honest inside it. The alien woman stepped back, her glowing skin giving her away even as she tried to hide in the dark. The footsteps grew closer. From behind a broken wall, a figure appeared. It was a man. His hair was short, a soft golden brown that caught the faint moonlight. His clothes were torn from travel, his boots thick with dust. He carried no crown, no jewels, no sign of power. Only a small pack on his back and a look of tired strength in his eyes. A human. The alien woman had heard stories of humans, but never believed she would see one with her own eyes. Her people had called them weak, fragile, short-lived creatures who had nothing to give the stars. Yet the man stood there, tall and steady, his chest rising with calm breaths, his eyes sharp but kind. She wanted to run. She wanted to vanish into the shadows before he could speak again. But her feet would not move. Her heart pounded in her chest, a sound so loud she feared he could hear it. The human's eyes met hers. He did not flinch at the sight of her glowing blue skin. He did not stare in fear or disgust. He simply looked curious. "You're real," he whispered softly, almost to himself. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her not as a curse, not as a burden, not as a mistake. He looked at her like she was alive. And in that moment, A seed of something dangerous began to grow inside her heart. Hope. The human's arrival. The alien woman's heart was beating fast. The sound of her own pulse filled her ears as the human stepped closer. His boots crunched over broken stones, his shadow stretching long across the ruins. He stopped a few steps away, careful not to frighten her. His hands were open, empty, showing no weapon. His face was tired from a long journey, but his eyes carried something she had not seen in years. Kindness. I didn't mean to disturb you, the human said, his voice steady but gentle. I thought this place was empty. Empty. The word cut her deeply. Was she so forgotten that even strangers thought these ruins held nothing? She pulled her cloak tighter around her glowing skin, but the faint light of her body still betrayed her. She could not hide what she was. She could not hide that she did not belong anywhere. The man tilted his head slightly, studying her, not like a hunter, not like an enemy, but like someone seeing something rare for the first time. You are not like the others I've met, he whispered. She flinched. Others? What did he mean? She had not seen her kind in years. Perhaps he spoke of different beings, travelers like him. Still, she stayed silent. The human lowered his pack and slowly sat down on a broken stone, giving her space. He did not push closer. He did not demand her name. He simply sat, as if waiting for her to decide whether he was friend or foe. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried dust through the air, and the ruins moaned with the weight of time. She stared at him with cautious eyes, but he simply looked back with patience. At last, she whispered, her voice soft, almost breaking. Why are you here, human? The man's lips curved into a small, tired smile. Because everywhere else closed its doors to me. And when doors close, you keep walking until you find one that opens. His words struck something inside her. She knew what it was to face closed doors, to be turned away, to be cast aside. But this human spoke with a quiet strength, as if rejection had not broken him, only taught him to endure. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him to leave before danger found them both. But another part of her, the lonely part, the forgotten part, wanted him to stay. So she asked carefully, "And what do you hope to find here?" "There is nothing left. No people. No home. Only dust." The human leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. His golden brown hair shifted in the wind, and his eyes never left hers. "Sometimes," he said softly, "hope is found in places where everyone else has already given up." The alien woman looked away quickly. She could not let him see the tears threatening to rise. She had told herself long ago that hope was a poison. Yet here, in this man's voice, hope sounded alive. A sudden noise cracked the air, distant, low, and rumbling. Her head snapped up. From the shadows of the ruins, movement stirred. The night was not safe, and she knew it. Creatures roamed here, things twisted by time and hunger. Her body tensed. She was ready to flee, as she always had. But before she could move, the human stood and stepped forward, putting himself between her and the sound. His stance was strong, his shoulders squared. She stared at him in shock. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "Maybe not," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But no one should face the dark alone." For a moment, the world felt unreal. A stranger, someone not even of her kind, was ready to defend her. He had no reason. He owed her nothing. Yet he stood there, like a shield against the night. The noise faded, leaving only silence. The danger had passed for now. The human relaxed, but he did not move away from her side. She watched him closely, her mind racing. Why would he risk himself for her? What did he see in her that she no longer saw in herself? The human finally turned his head, meeting her gaze again. His eyes were steady, unafraid of her glowing blue skin, unafraid of her brokenness. "My name is Daniel," he said simply. "What's yours?" Her lips trembled. She had not spoken her name aloud in years. It felt heavy, like a memory of a life she had lost. But something in his voice made her believe it mattered again. At last, she spoke. "My name is Soraya." The human smiled softly, as if the name itself was a gift. "Soraya," he repeated, letting it linger in the air. then we are not strangers anymore. The alien woman lowered her gaze, her heart beating faster. For the first time since her exile, she felt a strange warmth spreading inside her chest. She had lived so long believing she was forgotten. Yet now, sitting across from a human in the ruins of her broken world, she realized something she had never dared to hope. She was not alone anymore. Secrets shared. The fire they built was small, nothing more than broken wood and scraps of cloth, but it gave light to the ruins around them. The flames danced gently, painting the alien woman's blue skin with a golden glow. Daniel sat across from her, his hands open near the warmth, his eyes still studying her with quiet patience. She had not spoken much since telling him her name. Soraya. It felt strange to hear it again, as if her voice had pulled it back from a grave. Daniel had repeated it softly, respectfully, like he wanted to keep it safe. And now, under the stars, that name seemed to live again. But names were not the same as truths. Truths were heavier. Truths could cut. Daniel leaned back, resting his shoulders against a broken wall. He did not push her with questions. He waited, letting silence speak first. And in that silence, Soraya's thoughts grew restless. Why was he here? Why had he not walked away already? If he knew what she truly was, if he knew the shame she carried, would his eyes still look at her with kindness? Or would he leave, like everyone else? The memory burned inside her chest. Her mother's face cold with disappointment. Her father's voice sharp as a blade. A royal tree that cannot bear fruit must be cut down. Soraya looked down at her hands, trembling. The firelight flickered across her pale fingers. She thought of staying silent forever. But silence was a cage, and she had lived in it too long. At last, her voice broke the still air. My people abandoned me. Daniel's head lifted slightly, his eyes narrowing with focus. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. He simply listened. Soraya swallowed, forcing the rest out. I was a princess once. Royal blood. Golden halls. Endless gardens. All of it was mine. She paused, bitterness thick in her tone, until they discovered I was barren. Her words trembled, but once spoken, they spilled freely like water from a cracked jar. To my kind, a princess must give life. She must carry heirs, continue the bloodline. But I cannot. My body refuses. And so I was cast out, a worthless branch cut from the royal tree. Her voice broke on the last word. She looked away quickly, ashamed of the tears rising in her eyes. But Daniel's voice came, steady and calm. Worthless. She froze. His tone was not mocking, not doubtful, just firm, like he couldn't believe the word belonged to her. Soraya whispered, her throat tight. That is what they said. My family. My people. Even I believed it. Daniel shifted, leaning closer, his eyes fixed on her through the firelight. Then they were wrong. Her breath caught. No one had ever said those words to her. Not once. She shook her head quickly. You don't understand. In my world, a woman who cannot give children has no place. She is broken. Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice was quiet, but it carried steel. Maybe in their world, but not in mine. His eyes softened as he spoke the next words, low but strong. You're not broken, Soraya. You are alive. You are here. And that means something. The fire cracked between them. For a long time, she could not answer. Her heart was too heavy, her thoughts too tangled. But deep inside, his words struck something long buried. A part of her she had almost forgotten. The belief that maybe, just maybe, she had worth beyond what others demanded of her. She studied him through blurred eyes. His clothes were torn, his body weary from travel, but his spirit, it was unshaken. He had no crown, no title, no royal blood. Yet he spoke with more truth than any king she had ever known. Soraya whispered, almost too softly to hear. Why do you care? Daniel looked into the fire, then back at her. His answer was simple, but it carried weight. Because I know what it's like to be thrown away. Her breath stilled. For the first time, she realized that perhaps his kindness did not come from pity. Perhaps it came from his own scars. Daniel leaned back again, his gaze lifting to the broken sky. People tell me humans are weak, fragile, short-lived. Maybe that's true. But weakness teaches us something. It teaches us how to endure, how to see value where others don't. And I see value in you, Soraya. The flames flickered higher for a moment, as if agreeing with him. Soraya's heart raced. She wanted to believe him. She wanted his words to be true. But fear still gripped her. She had trusted before, and trust had left her shattered. Could she dare again? Silence stretched between them, but it was no longer the silence of strangers. It was the silence of two souls, each carrying wounds, sitting close enough for those wounds to be seen. For the first time in years, Soraya felt the weight of her secret ease, if only slightly. She was still afraid. She was still broken, but she was not invisible. Daniel had seen her, and he had not turned away. A dangerous world. The ruins had fallen silent again. The fire between them burned low, crackling softly in the dark. Soraya sat with her arms wrapped around herself, her thoughts spinning like broken glass. Daniel's words still echoed inside her. You are not broken, but her heart could not hold them steady. Outside the circle of firelight, shadows stretched long and deep. The air was cold, heavy with the smell of dust and old stone. Every corner of the ruins felt like it was hiding something. Soraya had lived here long enough to know the truth. These ruins were not empty. She stiffened suddenly. Her ears caught a faint sound, a scraping, dragging noise across the ground. It was slow, deliberate. Not the wind, not the shifting of rocks. Something alive. Her breath caught in her throat. They found us, she whispered. Daniel sat up immediately, his muscles tensing, his hand instinctively moving to the small blade at his side. His eyes narrowed, scanning the dark. Who? Not who, Soraya said, her voice trembling. What? From the shadows, movement stirred. Then another, and another. Pale, twisted shapes crept from the broken walls, their bodies stretched and unnatural. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dying firelight. Creatures of the ruins, beasts twisted by hunger and time. Daniel rose to his feet, placing himself between Soraya and the approaching figures. His jaw tightened, but his voice was calm. Stay behind me. Soraya's heart pounded. She wanted to run, as she always had. That had been her life, fleeing danger, hiding in shadows, surviving one night to fear the next. But something in Daniel's stance, steady, unshaken, held her in place. The first creature crawled closer, its long limbs scraping the stones. It opened its mouth, a horrible hiss escaping into the night. The sound echoed through the ruins, calling others from the dark. More shadows stirred, closing in. Daniel gripped his blade tighter. It was small compared to the monsters around them, but his grip was firm, unyielding. His eyes locked onto the nearest one. He didn't flinch. Soraya felt her chest tighten. This man, this fragile human, was preparing to fight creatures even she feared. He could have run. He could have left her. But instead, he stood there, guarding her with nothing but his will and a single blade. The first beast lunged. Daniel moved quickly, faster than Soraya expected. His blade flashed, cutting across the creature's arm. It shrieked, stumbling back, but another leapt forward, snapping jaws toward him. Daniel twisted, his boots slamming into its chest, forcing it to the ground. Soraya gasped. Humans were supposed to be weak. That was what her people had always said. But this one fought like a storm. Every movement sharp, controlled, desperate, but unyielding. Still, there were too many. Shadows pressed closer, glowing eyes circling the fire. Daniel's breaths grew heavier, his arm bleeding from a shallow cut. The beasts were testing him, waiting for his strength to falter. Soraya's hands shook. She had always been helpless, always powerless. Her people had stripped her of worth, told her she could give nothing. But now Daniel was bleeding for her, standing for her. Something inside her broke free. She rose to her feet, her blue skin glowing brighter as her fear turned into resolve. Her voice rang through the ruins, sharp and clear. Leave him. The creatures froze for a moment, their glowing eyes fixed on her. The light of her body pulsed, stronger, brighter, casting shadows across the walls. She stepped forward, her hands trembling but raised, her voice carrying power she had forgotten she had. The beast hissed, uneasy, shifting back from the light. One snapped its jaws in defiance, but Soraya's gaze burned into it with a strength born from years of pain. "You will not take him," she said, her voice low but fierce. The creatures shivered, as if her words carried a weight they could feel. Slowly, one by one, they slinked back into the shadows, their glowing eyes fading into the dark. The ruins grew quiet again. Only the fire's crackle and Daniel's rough breathing remained. Soraya's glow dimmed as her strength faded, and she stumbled. Daniel caught her quickly, steadying her against his chest. His hand was warm, firm, alive. "You," he breathed, staring at her in awe. "You scare them off." Soraya shook her head weakly. "No, they feared the light. Not me." But Daniel's eyes told her he didn't believe that. He had seen her stand, her voice command, her glow push back the dark. To him, she was not weak. She was not broken. Soraya looked up at him, her chest rising fast, her heart racing. For the first time, she saw something new in his eyes. Not just kindness, not just strength, but belief. And belief was something she had thought she would never feel again. The ruins were still dangerous. The night was still long. But in that moment, Soraya realized something had changed. She was no longer just surviving. She was fighting, because for the first time, she had something worth fighting for. The whisper. The ruins were silent once more. The creatures had vanished into the darkness, leaving only shadows that stretched across the broken stones. The fire between Soraya and Daniel was low now, glowing like a heartbeat in the night. Soraya sat on a crumbling wall, her body still tense from the fight. Her chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath, but her mind refused to settle. She had faced her fears tonight, and yet, the greatest fear remained inside her. Daniel sat beside her, his blade resting loosely across his lap. He had not pressed her with questions or words of comfort. Instead, he had simply stayed close enough for her to feel the warmth of his presence. And for the first time, that presence felt safe. Soraya's blue skin shimmered faintly in the dying light, her heart aching with a strange mix of hope and fear. She had hidden for so long, believing no one could see her truly. But Daniel, he had seen her, and he had not turned away. She looked at him, her eyes searching for the courage to speak. "Daniel," she whispered. He turned toward her, his dark eyes softening. "Yes." She hesitated. The words were heavy, dangerous, yet necessary. I've never had someone stay with me before. Not like this. Not willingly." Daniel's lips curved into a small, understanding smile. "Then don't think of me as just staying. Think of me as choosing to be here." Her chest tightened. Choice. It was a word she hadn't heard in years. Choice meant freedom. Choice meant trust. Choice meant connection. Soraya's gaze dropped to her hands. "I've always believed that I am nothing. A princess without value. A life without purpose. I thought," her voice trembled, "I thought no one could ever care for me. Not truly." Daniel reached out, brushing a strand of her glowing hair from her face. His fingers were gentle, deliberate, almost reverent. "You're wrong," he said softly. "I care. I care because I see you. Not the title, not the rules of your people, just you." Soraya's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but fear and pain had built walls inside her heart. She had been abandoned, humiliated, and exiled. How could she trust even a human, let alone someone willing to see past everything she had been told? Daniel leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, soft as the wind over the ruins. "Let's build something together. Something that matters. Not because the stars demand it, not because your people said so, but because we choose it." Her breath caught. The words were strange, unfamiliar, beautiful. "What do you mean?" He smiled, a small, tired smile that carried warmth and hope. "A family. Not one bound by blood or duty. A family we choose. You and me, together." Soraya's heart pounded, and tears pricked her eyes. No one had ever said those words to her before. No one had ever offered her hope like this. Not her parents, not her advisors, Not even the stars she had once worshipped as a princess. The whisper echoed in the ruins, carried by the night wind, wrapping around them like a promise. "Let's build a family together," Daniel repeated, his hand reaching for hers. Her hand trembled, hovering in the space between them. Could she dare to touch hope? Could she risk believing again? Slowly, almost unwillingly, she let her fingers brush against his. The connection was electric, but gentle. A spark of life surged through her, and she realized something she had not felt in years. She belonged, if only for this moment. Daniel squeezed her hand lightly, his eyes locking with hers. "We'll take it one step at a time," he said, voice calm, steady. "No pressure, no expectations, just together." Soraya exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping her lips. It was the first sound of joy she had allowed herself in what felt like an eternity. "Together," she repeated, her voice firmer now, carrying the weight of something fragile but growing. The firelight flickered across their faces, casting dancing shadows, but for the first time, the darkness outside felt less threatening. The ruins still held secrets, dangers, and uncertainty, but inside this small circle of warmth, a seed had been planted. Hope, trust, family. And in that quiet, simple whisper, the first bond of something extraordinary began to take root. Soraya leaned closer, resting her forehead against Daniel's. "I've waited so long to hear that," she murmured. "And I've waited to say it," he replied. Above them, the stars shone faintly, indifferent yet watching. But for the first time, Soraya did not feel small beneath them. She felt seen, and that, she realized, was the beginning of everything. Shadows of the past. The ruins seemed quieter now, but Soraya felt a new, unease coil around her like a serpent. The warmth of the fire and the closeness of Daniel could not erase it. "Something's coming," she whispered, her voice low and urgent. Daniel glanced at her, brow furrowed. "You think it's another creature?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Worse. Not out there, inside." He frowned, unsure what she meant. Soraya's eyes, glowing faintly, reflected a storm of memory. Shadows in her mind flickered. Faces of those who had abandoned her, whispered accusations, eyes that had judged her worthless. "They'll never forgive me," she murmured. "My family, my people, they'll see me as a traitor, as weak." Daniel reached for her hand again. "Then let them see." "I don't. I see you." But even as he spoke, movement stirred at the edge of the ruins. Figures emerged, slow and deliberate, cloaked in the dark. Soraya froze, recognition flashing in her eyes. "It's them," she said, voice tight. "My people, the ones who sent me away." They were not like the creatures of the ruins. They were organized, disciplined, their alien armor glinting under the dim firelight. And their eyes were not kind. They carried judgment, disdain, and authority. Daniel stood instantly in front of her, protective, his blade ready. "Soraya, stay behind me." But Soraya shook her head. "No, I have to face them." Her pulse raced. This was the moment she had feared. Her family, the ones who had called her worthless, had finally found her. And now, she would have to prove herself. Not to the stars, not to herself, but to them. The leader stepped forward, tall, commanding, a crown of cold metal atop his head. "Soraya," he said, voice sharp as broken glass. "You have betrayed your lineage. You have abandoned your duties. Why should we let you live?" Soraya's heart thudded painfully, but she did not flinch. She straightened her shoulders, standing tall despite the trembling inside. "I have not abandoned anyone. I have chosen a new path." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You have chosen a human, a creature of no consequence. This is an insult to your blood, to your people." Daniel's grip on his blade tightened. "She's more than blood. She's more than tradition. And you will not touch her." A cold laugh echoed from the leader. "You, human, dare to stand here and speak of worth? You do not even belong in her world." Soraya stepped forward, her glow intensifying. "Then see me now. See what I have become. Not weak, not broken. Strong, alive, and capable of more than you will ever understand. The tension was electric. Daniel could feel it in the air, the weight of legacy, the threat of violence, the fragile hope of change. The ruins seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. Then Soraya did something unexpected. She raised her hands, and a pulse of light shot into the darkness, not blinding, but commanding. The ground vibrated under the power she had kept hidden for so long. Her people staggered, shields up, eyes wide with shock. They had never seen her like this. They had expected fear, submission, but not defiance. Not power, not life. Daniel's eyes met hers, awe and pride mingling. "You're incredible," he whispered. The leader faltered, uncertainty flickering across his face. Soraya took a slow step forward, the glow around her growing brighter. "I am no longer yours to judge," she said, her voice steady, ringing with authority. "I answer only to myself and to those I choose to protect." The leader's expression twisted, rage and disbelief battling for control. "You dare defy us?" "I do," she said simply. Daniel moved to her side, his hand brushing hers for reassurance. Together, they were no longer two individuals afraid of the world. They were a unit, unbreakable, ready to face whatever came next. The shadows of her past still lingered, but for the first time, Soraya realized they no longer had power over her. She had faced them, stood tall, and discovered strength she had never known. And as the night stretched on, filled with tension, whispers, and the hum of distant stars, she felt a single undeniable truth. She was no longer alone, and with Daniel, she could challenge anything, even the weight of her own history. The family they built. The first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the ruins in soft gold. The battle of the night had ended, but its echoes lingered in Soraya's heart. Her people had left, their words of judgment fading like shadows in the morning light. Soraya stood beside Daniel, the warmth of his hand and hers a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. For the first time, she felt a calm that wasn't forced, a peace that didn't hide fear. "You did it," Daniel said softly, his voice filled with awe. "You stood your ground. You changed everything." Soraya smiled, though a trace of uncertainty lingered. "No, we did it. I couldn't have done this alone." He squeezed her hand, and she felt the weight of trust, loyalty, and something deeper, love, settle between them. The ruins, once cold and silent, now seemed alive. Birds began to stir, their songs mingling with the wind. Even the stars, still faintly visible in the fading night sky, seemed to shine a little brighter, as if blessing the moment. Soraya took a deep breath. "I have lived so long believing that I was worthless, that I had no place in this universe. But now, I see that life is not about what others expect of you. It's about what you create with the people you choose." Daniel nodded, his gaze tender. "And what do you want to create, Soraya?" Her heart fluttered. "A family, a real family, not made of duty or blood, but of love. One where we protect each other, trust each other, and grow together." Daniel smiled, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "Then let's do it, starting now." And so they began, quietly, simply. The ruins became their first home, the walls of stone their sanctuary. Daniel taught Soraya how to build, repair, and cultivate life in the harsh environment. Soraya shared her knowledge of the stars, the technology, and the ancient wisdom of her people. Each day was a lesson, a discovery, and a bond that grew stronger. Days passed, then weeks. Together, they planted gardens that glowed with alien flora, small lights flickering like fireflies in the night. They built rooms from the ruins, walls of stone softened with care, a space where warmth and laughter could exist. But the true miracle was not in the walls or the gardens. It was in them. They became more than protector and protected. They became partners, equals, and slowly, something extraordinary began to blossom in Soraya's heart. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Soraya turned to Daniel, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and fear. "I want," I want us to have a child, to grow this family, to make it real. Daniel's hand went to her cheek, gentle and reassuring. We will, and it will be perfect because it will be ours. Chosen, loved, and safe. Tears filled Soraya's eyes, but this time they were not tears of fear. They were tears of joy, release, and unspoken gratitude. For the first time, she truly understood what it meant to belong, to be loved, and to create life not out of duty, but out of heart. And so their family grew quietly and beautifully. The walls of the ruins echoed with laughter. The alien gardens flourished under their care, and Soraya discovered that the universe could be a place of love, not judgment. But more than that, they became a symbol. To her people, they were proof that hope could rise from exile, that bonds stronger than blood could exist, and that life could be chosen, not dictated. As she watched Daniel hold the small, glowing child in his arms, Soraya whispered to the stars, "Thank you for giving me hope, for showing me a future I never dreamed I could have." The child's laugh echoed through the ruins, mingling with the wind and the soft glow of alien flora. It was a sound of promise, of love, of new beginnings. Soraya realized then that the story was not about her past, nor about the pain she had endured. It was about the family they had built, about courage, about choosing love over fear, about the human who had whispered, softly but firmly, "Let's build a family together." And in that moment, she knew that she would never be alone again. Not with Daniel by her side, not with their child in their arms, and not with the life they were creating together. The ruins, once a place of sorrow and exile, had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, hope, and the kind of love that could span galaxies. And as the suns rose higher, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Soraya finally smiled with a heart unburdened. The family they had chosen was real, unstoppable, and eternal.